Betu Washte, Medakiape, Lemia, Carm, and then we also have
I'm here.
Foster. And we also have Kamo, Karen, and Hollis.
Ooh. Two guest stars.
Today we're going to be talking about plants and medicines and all of our experiences and how we learned and different interests, and we're all going to share from our own knowledge. So we'll be mostly asking questions, Foster and I, and then Kamo and Hollis will mostly be answering. So to begin, can y'all introduce yourself?
Sure. I'll go first. So I am Kamo, Karen Moore. My family comes from the St. Francis community. My parents are Tisha and the late Fred Moore. My mom's family's from Missouri, so I don't know them that well. But my dad's family, his dad's side comes from Corn Creek, and my grandma's side, she's a Compton, she came from Rosebud. So kind of moved around the res growing up. I feel like I've lived a bunch of lives at this point and still continuing to grow and learn. So, yeah.
Cool, thank you.
I'm Hollis Flowers. I'm happy to be here. I currently live in Parmalee, Sicangu Territory. I was raised in Nashville, in between Tennessee and Louisiana. And my ancestry, my family is from mostly Italy and Southern Europe, and Eastern Europe. So yeah, excited to be here.
Cool. Dayaya Hippie.
It's going to be a good one. I'm excited for it.
Sweet. Yes, thank y'all for being here. We're also coloring at the same time too, so if you hear like shoo, 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 that's us coloring with crayons, markers, and colored pencils. All right, so, and you guys can answer this however you want to, whoever wants to go first, if something comes to mind a little bit quicker or whatever. So, how did you first become interested in native plants or traditional medicines?
Well, I'll go first. I'm Hollis. It's hard for... I remember the exact memory of when I started getting interested in plants. I was outside. I was probably like 6, and I was eating grass, like probably Bermuda grass, like actual grass. And my dad was like, hey, don't eat that, but you can eat this, and showed me violets and violet stems and how they're a little bit sour sweet. So I think that was knowledge passed on from his grandma. And my dad has always supported my interest in plants. So then throughout my life, in kindergarten, I did a project on edible flowers. And then in middle school, I studied catnip and told the rest of the class that you could smoke catnip, and I got in trouble for my teacher.
Wow.
But I think it's just been a 3 decades worth of learning and learning from plants, learning from people.
Cool.
About all different territories. So yeah, it's been a long process.
Cool.
My very first memory, I remember my family and we would go harvesting for sage when I was super young, after church, like during the summer, and just the smell of that drying on our dash, like over the summer, and then us burning it over the winter. But I really didn't get into plant knowledge or herbalism knowledge until I was probably, I think 2020, the year that everything changed for everybody. And we were trying to learn more kind of natural remedies to support our bodies during that uncertain time, and becoming more aware, just learning more about what was already growing around us instead of buying pills from the store or getting them from the doctor or whatever. I think that's when my interest like really, really peaked in plants and how to treat them respectfully, because, you know, they are a relative, but also, I don't want to say used, because I don't like using that term, but figuring out how they could support us and we take care of them at the same time.
That's cool.
I like that.
Yeah, I never thought of that in that way.
One of the few good things to happen out of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I know.
And to follow up on that for both of you, is there a plant that feels especially important to you or your family?
Just one? Just kidding. I mean, I think sage has always just kind of been a staple for my family. Again, because it's easily identifiable, and like even research from Western science has shown that like it can kill harmful bacteria in the air. And it's like, this is stuff that our people have known since the beginning of time, when sage first became available. And also lavender's another staple, just because of its relaxing properties, and it's so aromatic. So yeah, sorry, I just started a bunch. If I smudge a little bit before going to bed, I always put a little bit of lavender. And it smells so good.
That's nice.
My friend Steven Swiftberg just helped with a high school research project at OLC, Oklahoma Lakota College, where one of the students studied antibacterial properties of sage, and they used like some really old sage that they had in the back of the office. It was all dried and brittle, and they used it on petri dishes, and it so they made sage tea with it, and it completely killed the bacteria on there. Wow. Even the old sage.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's really cool to like see that, because dang, what grade was the student?
They were in high school. I really wish that I could remember her name, because I want to credit her, see if I have it in my phone somewhere. But all the students did different land-based science research. So some of them did plants, some studied buffalo.
Which school was it?
I think it was high schools from all over the
Is
state.
it that Lakota AI camp?
Well, it wasn't AI. I don't think.
But or they use technology to like fuse culture and like.
Oh yes, they did. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
might be
cool.
Maybe it was that.
Dang.
That's
Mason?
Yes.
Mason Grimshaw. Shout out Mason Grimshaw.
Woo.
Dang. That's cool.
Go Mission Mayhem.
So,
Hometown legend.
The OCMST Research Symposium was the name of the symposium, and another student was going swimming with his family at a dam near Porcupine, I believe, and he found otters, which is actually pretty special.
Holy cow.
So then he just studied those otters for his
Wow.
research
Oh my
project.
god.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Ugh.
That's cool.
Really cool.
Yeah, I actually saw an otter once.
Wow.
In Nebraska, just south of here, and it was like seeing a mermaid. It was swimming like this.
I like their little hands.
They're so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I believe they were almost wiped out from the European fur trade here.
Whoa.
And maybe it was Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe that worked on reintroducing them. So they're still pretty rare West River. They used to be.
Wow. Yeah, I believe it, like with all those forts in South Dakota.
Yeah.
Fort Pierre.
And the fur trade.
Fort Thompson. Dang.
Another animal like that is the fisher. I didn't even know what it was, but someone saw one recently and told me about it. They're kind of like big, secretive, but they're not that big, like this, a little bigger than a cat. And they have really long tail, and they were almost hunted to extinction in this area too. For fur.
Perfect. Dang.
Sorry, what was the question?
Oh yeah.
A plant that feels important to you or your family.
Wow. You know,
Otters.
That's okay.
Otter
a
plant.
lot. Yes, otters.
Animals matter too.
Yeah. Wow. I feel like every few months I have a new hyperfixation plant.
Cool.
I think the most important plant relative to me is probably the oak. Oaks are indigenous to Italy, which is my most prominent ancestral connection, and they're also native to here. Here we have the bur oak, which is such a beautiful oak, and I love it so much. I love working with oak in herbalism, and spiritually there's a lot of old Italian ceremonies using oak. So that's why I have this acorn right here. But yeah,
Cool.
I love oak. Maybe oak, probably.
Cool. I feel like that's the area I lack is the trees.
Mhm.
I don't know much about trees.
That's what I always say.
Yeah.
Hollis or somebody else be like, what kind of tree is this? And I said, I don't know my trees. They're plants, but I don't know them that well.
I just know softwoods and hardwoods.
I don't even know that.
Yeah.
Just for like mushrooms and for firewood
Yes.
for like sweat and stuff. So like when Vance was teaching us like those hardwoods, then I was like, wow, so cool. I wish. And it's like using the chainsaw, you know, that was my first time kind of like paying attention to trees. Yeah.
Yeah, I got really into firewood recently, but I feel like the main way that trees are kind of introduced to me from a European background would be like building and burning, right?
Oh, yeah.
And those are both very, they're important. They're critical.
Mm.
And they're also, I think, very industrialized now.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's interesting to look past that. For oak, like something, oak is seen as a building material and a burnable wood, which, like I said, is important, but it's also medicine. It's also used in like very intimate feminine magic, basically. Wow. So, I don't know, I think that's interesting. And if you try and Google about something like that, it's hard to get past a lot of, same with pine,
Yeah.
I feel like if you're trying to research about something like that, it's all about burning it or building with it.
Yeah, pine with tipis.
Yeah.
That was another thing, was learning about pines and how they are made for teepee poles, and that was cool. I've always, I don't know, ever since then I'm just love pines more.
So my hookah sister, Sunrise Black Bull, is working on this project that I won't really get into, but it's about the sacred sites, Lakota sacred sites. And so she took me to pě. And at the same time, I was really hyperfixating on the lodgepole pine, right? So it's a pine that doesn't really exist here in great quantities anymore, but if you look at a map, let me try and pull up a map of lodgepole pine. So there was one small stand in the Black Hills, and other than that, it's basically just in north, like that traditional territories, like northwestern population is mostly where the lodgepole pine is, and okay, here. Sorry, we'll just pause while I look
Wait, say that again.
Okay. So the lodgepole pine is mostly found in the northwestern territories. So here's a map. So that's where the lodgepole pine is. And as you can see, there's like a teeny tiny dot in South Dakota. Right?
Wow.
So there's some theories that I got really into about why that's there. So when I talked to my botanist friend, like a white botanist, he said that that's most likely there from thousands of years ago when the lodgepole pine was all over this place. Okay.
Wow.
But so I mapped out those places where the lodgepole pine were, and I was already interested in that. Then Sunrise took me to pě, and I noticed that all of the lodgepoles are right there.
Wow, holy cow.
So I was talking to Sunrise about our theory that the lodgepoles were traded even more recently with coastal tribes and were taken care of near pě so that they could be used for ceremony in pě. So the lodgepole pine is like way taller than the ponderosa pine.
Dang.
And way straighter. So they're like the Cadillac teepee pole.
Holy
kind of
cow.
vibe. I know
That makes a lot of sense.
So I just think that's really interesting.
Dang.
But the other thing about lodgepole pines is that their cones need heat, right? They need wildfires to open up. So I've been trying for years to find those lodgepole pines in the Black Hills, but it's possible that they're all gone.
Okay.
I think they live to be like 300, 400 years old. So those trees' grandchildren would still be here, but there would need to be wildfires there.
Dang.
So it's possible that they're all gone because of logging. There's some really old pictures of them, but I don't know. That's just something I'm interested in. Maybe finding some of those cones from that area and giving them to Lakota grandmas or something. Maybe they can grow them. Maybe it could be grown around here. I just think that's kind of cool.
That would be cool.
I like the
Yeah.
lodgepole pine.
Dang. Didn't know that about that. Dang. That makes a lot of sense though.
All the more reason why we need prescribed burns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, actually, a couple years ago now, I learned the history of like how Smokey the Bear came about,
Wow.
and how like burning parts of where you lived, that was just like a normal thing to help plants come back stronger, or like with the pines, you know, that specific pine, helping them to grow. Because like the one example I can think of is blueberries. The ones that we have in the store today are so different than what was growing here hundreds of years ago, pre-colonization. And so like the ones that were here originally, they were much different. I think they were bigger. And like the ones that you can buy at greenhouses now, you have to be so careful with the soil pH. Like it has to be so acidic, and you have to really kind of baby them. And you didn't have to. You didn't have to back in the day because, yeah, the ones that were growing here were used to being here.
So the next question that I have for y'all is, what have you learned about gathering plants respectfully and responsibly?
Definitely don't pull everything out by the root.
Oh, please. It breaks my heart.
You mean not Timsila?
All right, if you're going for
No, I'm just
if
kidding.
you're going for the root, yeah, different. But like, if it's a good time of year to go get chayaka and sage, don't be pulling that shit out. Sorry, don't be pulling that stuff out by the root, because then it's not going to come back next year.
Yeah.
I did see though, like mullein, you should be pulling that out by the root because it is
Oh, really?
invasive.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Invasive,
yeah. I seen that
yeah.
on TikTok. That one person that was like, they talk very aggressively
Exactly.
about.
Yeah, I know the guy.
Oh, you know
Yeah.
you know
With
that
the emo
person?
hair?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't know him. I just.
Oh,
No,
that was your
okay,
best
okay.
Yeah, I would.
Wow.
I think we could be besties.
Yeah.
Maybe one day.
I can see it.
Yeah, I think it brings up an interesting topic for us to talk about. I love to focus on invasive plants around here for two reasons. One reason is that a lot of times they're native plants to my ancestors. So they're plants that I have ancestral connections with, tradition with working with them. Like mullein was used, even people talk about it being used during the Roman Empire for candle wicks, but it was used before that because the Roman Empire is even kind of new in the history of time. So in that area that we call Italy now, people have been burning mullein torches for thousands of years.
Mullein torches, gee.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So what you do is you take the dried seed pod that's really damaging to the environment.
Oh.
So a mullein seed pod, it's like as big as your forearm, can produce 175,000 seeds. And those are all invasive seeds that are going to take out the sage and the other native plants. And if you just take one of those before it releases its seeds and dip it in beeswax, then it will burn for hours.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Is this smoke still then?
Not like super bad.
Oh, okay.
It's just like a candle, but it's big. Like I like to use them like a citronella candle, you know. Put some lemongrass in there and stuff like that. And then
Ooh, we have lemongrass.
I love lemongrass.
Our previous owners planted some over here, and then I was almost gonna buy some and plant some, and then Foster was like, "We have some at home.
We have lemongrass at home."
Dude, that's really cool.
At home.
We should try that. Yeah, I know. That too. Went all the way to the Black Hills for that.
For real.
I mean, it hits different that way. No, I'm just kidding.
It was very special harvesting in the Black Hills, but we had chanshansha literally 25 minutes from my house.
Lemongrass and citronella grass are like sisters.
Okay.
Yeah, they're related. So.
Do they taste the same?
Citronella's not as tasty as lemongrass.
Oh, okay.
But
So you
you can still use it for bug spray. Your lemongrass.
Ooh.
That's
Dang,
cool.
that's cool. Sweet.
I'll have to try that.
Yeah.
Winter might get tough this year.
I have a very visceral memory of when I was first starting to like really work with herbs, probably 2016. And my teacher at the time, Doña Teresa Monson, we were walking through New Orleans and she found a big bush of lemongrass, and she pulled out of her bag a sickle that she just had in her bag, cut it, and then we went home and she boiled it up and it smelled so good. And I always think of her when I think of lemongrass.
Wow.
But yeah, it's a good tea.
What's a sickle?
It's like a curved knife, you know, like
Really?
a communist knife.
Wow.
Not really, but you know what I'm talking about? Like,
Yeah. That's cool though.
Yeah.
So she just carried it
I
like
know.
ready
She's
to harvest.
badass.
That's cool.
yeah. And she's Mayan, so maybe has Mayan. I don't know enough about some lemongrass, where it comes from. But I only take 1/4. So for every 3 plants I see, every 4 plants I see, I pick one. Some people say 1/3, but I don't know. I feel like some things get over harvested, like chiaka
And sage.
Chiaka's wild mint, corn mint, also to the English speaker.
Never heard it be called corn mint.
That's why I learned it before I learned it as chiaka.
Cool.
And what else? I mean, an offering. So
Oh yeah.
I try to stick to the traditional offerings of whatever land I'm on, you know? So, but then I also pick up trash.
Oh,
so like
yeah.
for every plant I pick up trash too. And in Italian tradition, that's not really a thing around here, and maybe even frowned upon around here, would be like pulling out your hair and leaving your hair.
Oh, I've heard of
That's
someone
interesting.
doing that I heard a presentation of a Native woman saying that. Because your hair is your DNA, it's a part of you. So you're giving a part of yourself. That's cool. Dang.
Yeah, and I just feel like it's such a visceral sacrifice, you know? But then, like, my uncle's sister Annette was like, don't be leaving your hair.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. No, that part I get too, though. Yeah.
And I imagine it's nourishing for a plant, you know? Or like I tried to spread seeds.
Oh, yeah.
Native seeds that I know where they are,
Yep.
you know?
That's
Not
another
just
one.
a random seed packet from Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Out
Like-
there spreading all the mullein seeds.
Damn.
Like right now, I noticed, we were saying this the other day, that there's not a lot of chiaca out right now. So I was going to buy some corn mint seeds and then go spread that
cool.
near the creek. And then I can pick
Cool.
the chiaca.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
So I feel like we can get creative with our offerings, and it doesn't have to be one thing, you know. These are like our best friends. So.
Yeah.
I've even heard, like, if you don't have, you know, tobacco or chanchasha or seeds to replant, just like a little bit of water from what you're carrying with you, because climate change is real, and it's getting harder to find some plants because we're running out of water, and so they don't get as hydrated as they used to.
Yeah. And it's also more accessible for people that might not have access to tobacco or
Exactly.
chanchasha. Have you ever heard of I think it's called the trapped water theory?
You told me
What is
about
it?
this.
So there's this theory that one of the multitude of things that could kill us first, right? We got like a million things going on for the apocalypse.
Oh, yeah.
But one is that we have all of this trapped water. Like the big picture is that there's all these tankers in the middle of the ocean, but that water can't be evaporated because it's in like some kind of metal container that got lost by Walmart or whatever, you know? But then the smaller picture is like how when you're walking in a parking lot, you might see a Gatorade bottle that's filled with Gatorade sitting there not doing anything, right? So if that was to get thrown away, if we keep doing that, just throwing away bottles of water, bottles of even Pepsi, right? It's all comes from water, and we only have a certain amount of water left on the earth. So like one little thing you can do to help the earth is like if you see something, maybe if you know it's not pee, you know it's safe, you know, just pour it out, you know. So I've been trying to do that recently. Like if I see a bottle of water, a bottle of Gatorade, I just pour it out.
Wow.
Before I throw it away too, you know?
That makes a lot of sense. Dang.
It's probably not going to kill us, but, you know?
Yeah, it's a thought
Just a
that
nice
matters.
thing to
It's
do.
kind of goes along with the thing where, like, if you buy a thing of pop, the canned kind with the plastic ring, then to, like, cut all those for the turtles.
Yeah.
Ugh, my gosh.
Sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
But I think that's pretty mindful. Those few practices are pretty mindful, thinking, like, ahead, you know?
Yeah.
So, cool. Thank you for sharing.
On that note, do you have a favorite time of year for gathering?
Ooh.
Gathering or working with plants.
Oh yeah, there you go.
So, yeah.
No wrong answer.
We've been talking a lot. I guess that's because we're on a podcast.
Yeah, we're supposed to talk. I don't know. I always like to be out like peak summer harvesting season, so like July to August. But the older I get, and now that I'm in my big grown-up age, I can't handle the heat as much. So the more I learn about plants, the more I'm trying to see what's all around, like year-round instead of just in the middle of summer. So early spring, like whenever I see this, when I see the little baby nettles popping out of like the dead leaves and grass, I'm like, it's springtime, the nettles are back, and they're so cute whenever they're that small. And like, you know, nettles, you can use all of the parts. I don't know if you can use the root, but definitely all the parts above ground all have so many uses. And so like the more that I learn about nettles, the more that I'm finding out when they're that small is when it's a really good time to like cook with them.
Oh, wow.
Like with a lot of plants.
oh,
you
yeah.
know?
Like mullein, too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like they're less woody, they're more flavorful, like all of that stuff. And so I think I sent this recipe to you too. The nettles and dandelion cookies or something.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
And that cake.
Ooh.
And the cake, yeah. So yeah, I think I'm gonna try and do that next spring. It's when they're just itty bitty, and when the dandelions pop up.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, I like it.
You finished it.
You color fast.
I don't know how I did that.
I know, I just colored one animal. One Pokemon. Yeah, I really like this question. I mean, you know, I try to use my energy wisely and rest when the seasons are telling me to rest. So right now I'm trying to really go hard harvesting to the, you know, appropriately, not go too crazy.
Go
but-
ham.
Yeah. Not over harvest, but even harvesting a little bit is exhausting, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then rest, and then the winter I make stuff, right? I use it all up and I try to make stuff. I try to make it so that by the next spring my shelves are empty. I don't have any herbs left, but it's not really how it goes sometimes, but you know.
That happens.
But I also love, I mean, you know, there's just stuff to do all throughout the year. There's tapping in early spring and different mushroom seasons, fall and spring. And
Oh yeah.
in general, I know we were talking about this the other day, you know, I try to do roots in the late fall because that's when all the energy is going towards the roots. Leaves in the spring because that's when all the energy is going to the leaves.
Wow.
So even some people say now is too late to pick nettles because nettles are trying to focus on their flowers and their seeds, but I still pick it anyway.
Yeah.
And yeah, then flowers, then seeds, then
Wow.
roots again.
Oh yeah, the seeds part. Yeah.
Yeah. It's cool. And you know, we eat some seeds too. We harvest some seeds too, not just for seed keeping. I don't know, where, you know, in Italy, pine nuts are a big thing for pesto.
Ooh.
And I try to get into pine nuts around here, but they're not as big. But they're really cool. I mean, they taste amazing and they're so expensive. So I think it would be interesting to really harvest a lot of pine nuts from around here.
Dang, cool.
Yeah, I feel like that's something we don't utilize that much around here is the nuts.
Well, it goes back, for me at least, to the trees. Like, I
Oh,
don't know
yeah.
which trees are which, and then I don't know which trees produce nuts.
Same.
Okay, I'll show you. It's pretty easy. You know, once you figure it out. But acorns, oh my
yeah.
God, I freaking love acorns. I know I was just talking about oak, but
So you can, I didn't know this, but you can stain with acorn.
yeah.
And-
So,
And one of our previous owners that lived here planted them somewhere in our backyard. Do you remember where?
I don't.
But we see them around here, and they're like, they were telling us, because they're white, but they were like, you know, they have a lot of knowledge of plants too. And they were like, oh yeah, the acorns stain, like the native people use them. And I was like, really? But they didn't kind of explain how. They didn't explain how. So I was curious how, what were the stains used for or on what?
So acorns are really high in tannins, which is also what makes them really hurt our stomach when we don't purge the tannins, which is called leaching. So those tannins dye dark, so like black. So
Oh, yeah.
you can make ink out of it.
Oh.
You can also use the galls. There's other stuff that has tannins in it too.
Wow.
But like in a high quantity, a tannin could be a poison too.
Oh.
So, but
kinda
anyway,
like
I mean, you could.
cyanide. Nah.
Yeah. So you could even use it to like, you could make paint. You could make makeup. You could make, you know, leather dye would be like a really popular one, or like a wood stain.
That makes a lot of sense.
So
A wood stain, dang.
yeah, you know, I mean, really any pigment you can use for those things, and you can experiment with it.
Cool.
So pigments are really cool, like we were talking about
Yeah.
earlier with the marigolds. So, same with medicine. Dyes work differently depending on what you're working with. So if you're working with like a bark or a root, that's going to be like a really deeper, stronger stain than like a leaf.
Oh.
And same with medicine, you know, like with a root, like we see a lot of times around here, right around this time, with like bare root, people boil it really heavy, right? Because it's like a really strong medicine. But then leaves, you could even just make a sun tea out of it. You don't have to really bring that water to a boil. And
do you know how to identify that? The bare root?
I never found it. I think it's just in the high mountains. I've never seen it,
Really?
but I mean, technically, I guess I could identify it, but
Dang.
I never heard of it.
I've always wanted to learn.
That's another really amazing plant.
Yeah, it smells so good.
My first experience with that plant was calling it OSHA.
Oh, yeah.
And at Standing Rock, someone gave me like a big mug of it.
Wow.
With a bunch of roots inside of it, and I drank it, and I was like, wow. You know, like no honey in there. But I was like, wow, this plant's really cool. And then I named one of my chickens after it
Oh, cool.
when I had chickens. But yeah, I really like dyes, plant dyes. They're so cool. Making different stuff out of it. I think it would be fun to do like make a eyeshadow line with just those plants, you know?
I think Megan does that.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
wait.
that's fine.
Yeah. I was going to say, that sounds familiar,
I think
actually.
she uses like minerals and then you can find carmine beetles in the Black Hills. That's another really popular pigment because that's like this beautiful carmine red.
Is it an actual beetle?
Yes.
Oh, really?
And it's found on cacti. And it's, I mean, when I hear about it, I mostly hear about it like in Mexico or like southern territories. But I knew this guy that worked at the Badlands, and he told me he found it on prickly pears over there. So then it's just like a little red beetle that grows on prickly pears, and then you crush it up and it makes carmine. So that's like a really ancient pigment.
Real quick,
Not vegan.
before I lose my thought, because I remembered something. You were there. Remember at the local food conference, Mariah Gladstone was keynote, and then they also did a presentation, or the tea.
The tea presentation, yeah.
Okay, so do you remember that she also said that way back when, like early contact era, that the non-natives didn't mixtify their corn, so when they ate it, that tannin jacked up their stomachs, and they got really pale because of it, and so that kind of birthed like a vampire lore.
Whoa.
Yeah, that blew my mind. I couldn't remember that word until you just now said that.
Mixtify?
Tannin.
That's interesting, yeah.
What do
The
you have
mix-
to do with the mixtify?
Mixtification is like
Mixtification.
boiling it with ash water,
Oh.
That's cool.
and it breaks down that hard layer.
Isn't there another word for that too? When you're cooking with ash? Like you boil
Yeah.
the ash into the...
Mixtification. I'm probably saying it wrong.
Should I look?
Yeah, it's like NIX.
Like I know Sean Sherman does it.
Live?
No?
Nixtamalization.
That one.
That's the word that...
Nixtamalization.
Okay.
Or potash.
Maybe it's potash I was thinking of.
That's really cool. I never heard that before.
That blew my mind. I was like,
My ancestors
do
just,
you remember that?
just
You-
had the runs, and then people were like, vampire!
I don't know, because remember I missed part of her
Okay.
talk.
Okay, maybe that's what you missed.
Yeah.
But she said that, and that just blew my mind. I was like,
It's
what?
hilarious.
Because that's when we were watching Vampire Diaries for the 3rd time. And I was like, holy shit, I gotta call Carm and tell her this.
Aww.
Vampires.
Vampires.
Vampires. One thing I was going to say about tannins is that I'm also really into the way that squirrels kind of homestead for themselves. So obviously squirrels eat acorns, everybody knows that, but sometimes if they want to make it taste really good, or if it's an oak tree with especially high tannins, the bur oak that we have here is pretty low in tannins, so you barely even need to leach it at all. But the way that you leach is you basically run it through water like a million times. Just
So
to
kind
make
of
it
like
short.
doing tallow.
Yeah, kind of
Cool.
like that. Except just cold water. You can just do cold leaching
okay.
is what it's called. So what some squirrels will do is they will bundle up all of their acorns and leave it in a stream for a few days and just let it all run out, and then they'll just have like their best acorns.
That's really cool.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that so cute?
That is very cool.
That is. That's so smart.
Squirrels are so cute. I love squirrels.
Dang. How do you see plants and medicines fitting into Lakota culture or ways of life?
I mean, it's hard to pick just one kind of situation, because I feel like they're a part of our everyday life, especially way back in the day, when we didn't have the grocery stores to go to pick up whatever. We didn't have hospitals. We didn't have our craft stores to go get paints from, you know. All of that comes from the plants that were just already growing around us. And I do want to be like add a disclaimer or whatever, that a lot of our traditions that are still being practiced and coming back, like I don't have a lot of knowledge around that. So just from what I've been taught and what I've been able to experience, those plants, it's literally everywhere. If you go into somebody's home that does a lot of work with plants, or even if they're just learning, you can see like stuff hanging up to dry, or you can see like jars of stuff that has been dried, that's ready to use for medicine or to trade with somebody or whatever. So I think it's safe to say that plants are a part of just everyday life.
I think as a non-Lakota person that lives here on Lakota land, that's, you know, an ally, I guess. I see the way it's integrated into everything. It's definitely integrated into every part of my life. And so when the rooms that I'm in, the spaces I'm in, is usually plant-related spaces. And so I overhear a lot of conversations, stories, and songs, and also even like arguments and disagreements, different stories, you know, people coming, different practices. And I think that that's, to me, kind of an indicator that things are alive, you know, that things are thriving and that things can carry on because people care a lot. You know, I hear a lot of like people saying, I think that we should be doing it this way, and other people saying, I think we should do it that way, you know, and I don't know, I think that can be good.
Yeah.
To get back to the truth, or the truths.
Dang, cool. Yeah, multiple truths.
Yeah. If you didn't care, you wouldn't argue about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing that another Italian witch told me that a grandma told her, a nonna told her, is that everything that we have, all of our knowledge, is borrowed from the spirit world. And so nothing can ever be lost. And I feel that when I discover something on my own, discover is kind of a weird word, but when I am working with plants and I realize something that is already in practice, you know, like we're talking about with the tannins, you know, I'll get sick if I eat it this way. You know, I think maybe that's part of how knowledge comes to be anyway. But over years and years and years, and believing and listening to your elders and listening to stories and teaching children and being kind to your peers, that's how knowledge is built. And so I know it's not my place to say if that perfectly encapsulates Lakota knowledge, but I do. It gives me hope that it's all borrowed anyway, and that it never belongs to anybody. You know, if we lost the grid, quote unquote, or whatever, right now,
The grid fails.
yes, we still have that knowledge, and I mean, especially people like you three at this table are gonna find that knowledge, you know.
Revitalize the earth. Nah.
Yeah. And the plants are that spiritual source, right? Like the plants aren't going to lie to you about whether or not they're poison or medicine. And those two things are kind of the same. So it's still there, you know. As long as we keep the plants, it'll all be there.
And no pressure to the three of us on revitalizing plants or
Yeah.
anyone else
It's
on
up to you.
anyone else on their plant journey.
Yeah. Please, someone else. These three sea chongus are.
It reminds me though, like too, like not only just to this region, but like, okay, correct me if I'm wrong. In the Anaconda where that plane crashed, and the people, right? That was the Anaconda.
Yeah, and you mean Malaysia?
Malaysia, I think.
Well, there's plane crashes all over, so I don't know which
That
one you're
movie?
talking about.
No, on the news.
Oh, I missed that.
Remember? No, you know. Remember we talked about this?
Recently, or like?
Yeah, this past fall.
Oh, I don't know about that.
The plane crashed over there. It was like a family, and like these kids were the only ones that survived, and they were in the what is that big Anaconda River?
The Amazon.
The Amazon River. Okay, so it was the Amazon River. And in that area, like, the native people know how to, like, survive in that dense of a forest with all those different plants and spiders and little predators and things like that, especially, like, anacondas that are in there. Like, they all know how to and there's plants that are toxic in there, too. But it's so crazy that those kids that survived that plane crash in there, they had some knowledge, and they lived like that in the forest for I don't know how many weeks to maybe months in there, like with the plant knowledge that they did have,
I do remember
because they were looking for them, like it was all over the world news. Y'all remember that?
I don't remember that.
What the hell, dude? Is this some Berenstain Bears, like, what's that called?
Mandela.
Mandela effect?
I remember it slightly.
Okay.
This isn't ringing any bells for me, my bad.
Yeah. So I think of stuff like that too, like worldwide, what native people's knowledge was over in other regions that we might not know of, like, because we're here. Or I know, Hollis, you have different knowledge from other areas too. That's really cool. But it just makes me think of, like, how scary some people perceive the Amazon River is in that area. But, like, the native people there, like, have lived there forever.
Yeah.
Because I've always been, like, real scared of, like, the shows where they catch the biggest monster or whatever in, like, the Amazon River. And it's, like, so scary.
You know, people think this land's scary too.
Yeah.
Hospitable, quote unquote,
Yeah.
and the desert.
Oh, yeah. That's so true. I think of that sometimes too, like how we handle coming across rattlesnakes and stuff like that.
And all the people that, like, all the white people that didn't make it had no idea how to survive, you know?
Dang.
Yeah, like, so I think I bring this up in every conversation I have with anyone. But when I lived in Virginia for 6 months, I was there for part of hurricane season.
Oh.
And, like, we don't get hurricanes up in South Dakota. And so my workplace and my mentors are like, yeah, so be sure to get prepared for a hurricane. And I was like, how? I was like renting a room from in somebody's house, basically living on my own. And I said, I know how to prepare for, like, thunderstorms and big snowstorms and wind, but hurricanes, like, I don't know what to do for that. But then with climate change happening and weather systems changing for everybody, like a year or two later, they were down there they were expecting to get a blizzard, and they're like, what do we do? And so like then I had to kind of share what my best practice is for making it out and making sure that like your house and your car is okay after reaching those freezing temperatures and dealing with all that snow. So it's interesting.
If you had to choose, all of you, if you had to choose between incredibly cold winter or anacondas or tarantulas and spiders or the desert, which one would you choose?
I know immediately winter.
Okay.
I love the winter, that's why I'm here. But I mean, when you put it like that, like the jungle would be really cool too. But I don't have any kind of connection to that land. I'm trying not to move anywhere else without an ancestral connection. You know? Try not to colonize anymore, but
what about you, Foster?
Take a blizzard any day.
Well, that's kind of how I felt this week when we were in Minneapolis and there's the tornado warning, and I was like, wait, I have no idea what the fuck to do. Like, give me a hurricane, I know exactly what to do. But a tornado, I was so scared.
Eee.
Yeah, Carm drove through a tornado recently.
Yeah, there was some tornadoes outside of Minneapolis.
Would you guys go storm chasing or whatever?
Probably not. I'd be too scared.
From a safe distance.
Yeah.
Okay. Who or what? This is something you probably already have answered, but who or what has been your biggest teacher in learning about native plants?
I've had so many teachers, and I really feel like a classroom or like an herbalism school is the worst way to learn it. You know? I just feel like the plants are the best teacher, you know? One question that you mentioned earlier was plants that have surprised me with how powerful they are.
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I feel like, just as an example of how plants can teach you, Karen already knows this story, and I've already told it before, but when I was working with elderberries, I don't really like to work with elderberries anymore.
Why? What happened?
You got scarred.
Well, you know, elderberries, speaking of cyanide, contain cyanide precursors, which means that when they interact with our body, they can cause cyanide poisoning. And, you know, people talk about eating them raw, and choke cherries do too, you know? Like, people around here eat choke cherries raw to, like, take a nap, which is just a mild form of cyanide poisoning, basically.
Oh.
But, and maybe because I'm European, it affects me more, you know what I mean?
And someone told me, because I brought this up to them, they were like, oh, what? I don't know. Okay. They could have definitely just been pulling my leg, but I brought that up to them, and then they're like, oh no, that's not true, like we ate them all the time off the bush and we never had nothing happen to us. I was like, you guys didn't get diarrhea either? And they're like, nope, never. And I was like, so
when I harvested with my, I don't want to perpetuate any kind of racist stereotype that natives are built different, but also maybe natives are built different. So just balancing that, okay?
Okay.
So I went and harvested choke cherries with my Hunka sister, Annette Vogel, and she just ate them off the bush like that, and I was like, okay. It was like 10 years ago now, so I just ate them off the bush too, and I was sick and she wasn't.
Wow.
So I don't know, but that's just what happened. That's the story, you know? So, but then one time I wanted to make an elderberry pie, and so I cooked down those elderberries. Karen, you're gonna have to go in a different room. Okay, so I thought that it would be okay because I just cooked them down a little bit. So I just sampled a little bit. I had a few spoonfuls before they were fully cooked, right? And it was like The Shining. I was projectile vomiting.
Oh my God, really?
Yes. I probably had 2 spoonfuls of raw elderberries. And I and I started to lose consciousness. And I was
Holy
like,
shit.
elderberries, plants are amazing. Plants are so powerful. Like, I could die. I'm going to die right now. And then I passed out, hit my head on the toilet. And I woke up and I was like, I'm alive.
Oh my god, seriously?
Yes.
Were you alone when this happened? Oh my god, Hollis.
I'm dead.
That's scary.
I'm like, I'm not really in the mood for elderberries.
So, like, what's it been like since then?
It's fine, you
With
know,
elderberries?
like, I'll have elderberry syrup sometimes, but I don't really like the taste of it. But, you know, elderberry syrup, that's cooked down, right?
Yeah.
And I think elderberries does have a higher
Oh, okay.
concentration of that cyanide precursor. And I can also eat choke cherries raw. I'll do it all the time, and I don't get, like, fully sick, you know? But I did feel sleepy.
So it's like building up a tolerance then.
Maybe. But, and maybe choke cherries have less, you know?
So where did you find, sorry, I just thought of this. Where did you find elderberries? Was it around here? Because I've always wondered about that, if they're around here.
Well, that was in Tennessee. When I was just driving up to Minneapolis, I found so many bushes. Like, they were all over
cool.
the roads. But there's a few spots in the Black Hills that I could show you, for sure. So it grows around here. And I'll work with elderflower. I like elderflower.
Oh, yeah.
But elderberry also, on top of me having a traumatic experience, I also feel like it's like this like white lady homesteader herb. That's like a plant that a lot of like racist white ladies like, elderberry syrup.
Oh, okay.
You know, so I'm like, whatever, I just won't make that. There's plenty of other people making that. You know, but I thought it was cool. I was really excited at the time. I would love to die by a plant or animal.
Dang, wow.
Yeah.
Sounds like you got a good detox.
Yeah, detox, yeah.
If I die, I want y'all to like put sunglasses on me and drive me to bear country and then push me out the car.
Oh my
Bears
gosh.
community.
Oh my gosh. I don't know if those bears would, though.
I know, they just,
We'd have to go to, like, Yellowstone.
yeah.
Dude.
I feel like my first few teachers were like some aunties that helped raise my sibling and I. But like most of them not from here. They married in or they were adopted in by a family. And so, you know, the older I get, the more intentional. What? Oh.
Still thinking about it.
Elderberries.
So the older I get, the more intentional I am of like being very aware of who I share my energy with or who I take advice from.
Dang.
And so I'm really grateful for like the wisdom that Vi Wan teaches.
Oh, yeah.
And she's always been like very welcoming whenever I don't know something. She's always like, yeah, this is how you do it. And I remember one time she was teaching some people how to harvest sage and the roots accidentally came out. She's like, but that's okay. Like sometimes that happens. You just put the roots back in. Instead of just like being devastated about it.
You're like, yeah,
Exactly. She doesn't shame you for it.
You
if you're
slap on the
learning.
wrist. Down.
She's the
Get
best.
slapped with a nettle.
Across the face.
Thistle.
Down.
Oh, gee.
Damn, I'm imagining that. Ouch, holy. It's like scars.
For real. And then, you know, like our group that goes out harvesting throughout the year, just kind of teaching each other, like, maybe going about it in a different way or like learning how to identify different plants. Sharing some of our harvesting spots, you know, that are very secretive. But it comes from like having to work on trust and like building that trust in other people and finally being comfortable around them. So it's taken a lot.
Did you have like a bad experience with someone that was teaching you about plants?
I mean, yeah, in almost everything you're going to come across somebody who either doesn't have good intentions or they teach you wrong. But if you're like, oh hey, what about this? They'll shame you, you know, for questioning them or. So yeah, those experiences, definitely had those before.
That's a good segue into this next question. So what challenges have you come across in
Oh,
learning or
yeah.
practicing plant
Challenges.
knowledge? Sorry, I stole your question.
That's fine.
Also
Maybe.
finished.
Nice.
Yay! Pokemon. Teamwork, teamwork.
Which one's your favorite?
Squirtle.
I think maybe just my own mental health, you know, so I have obsessive compulsive disorder, and like the subset of OCD I have is called scrupulosity, which is like spiritual OCD. So I can feel really anxious, like I'm doing something wrong, or I'm doing it the wrong way, and I need to do it a different way, and feeling really bad and guilty, and that can keep me in my own head and in my bedroom for too long. But I think that anytime that I'm actually outside, for the amount of time that I spend around plants, looking and learning from plants, I'm only really harvesting like a fourth of that time, really, you know? So there's plenty of times where I go out and I find medicine and I just sit with the medicine, you know? We don't have to harvest it all the time. Like making things when I'm in a bad mood or when I'm distracted can be a challenge, you know? So then I just stop. I don't make things, you know, even if it takes a year, you know? And yeah, a lot of interpersonal conflicts or learning things wrong from people, you know?
Oh yeah.
Like a teacher teaching me the wrong way, and then I have to kind of unlearn that.
I really like what you said earlier about not teaching it in like a classroom type setting, because it just it makes so much sense because you have to be outside for one, but like it's a whole other like experience when you're doing things that are outside on the land. Like it stays when things are vivid like that with lots of colors, smells, tastes, touch, all of that, you absorb it so much better.
Yeah.
And that's so limited in the classroom. But we already know this for like all other subjects anyways. So
But I also feel like, you know, I'm just becoming a teacher, right? And I was really resistant to schooling for so long. But I've been able to witness the kind of indigenous education renaissance happening right now of like tribal colleges. And I do feel like that the work being done in those classrooms is really awesome. So cool, and I just like look up to that work so much. So I feel like Sinte Gleshka does a lot of amazing stuff. And I see y'all doing a lot of really cool stuff, you know. But it's not like a big brick wall in between you and the outside world. Like I see y'all going outside a lot, and you know.
yeah, that's true too about SGU. Yeah.
Any thoughts, Karen?
Good.
Yeah, I'm good.
So, is there something that you wish people understood more about traditional plants and medicines?
I think you're gonna go out and try to find different plants and different medicines, and more likely than not, you're gonna walk away empty-handed. Because I know that there have been plenty of times where I'm like, oh, I found this plant at this spot last year, so I'm gonna go look there again, and it's not there. But like with any living thing, plants move around, or if they're not treated right the year before, they don't come back. Or if I've even heard of some medicines where like if nobody harvests them at all, then they don't come back.
Definitely.
So like go out and be excited to look and see what's growing, and maybe you find a new plant that you've never seen or heard of before, and so you start learning about it, take pictures and learning about it, but don't always expect to come back with like arms full.
Hollis?
I guess going off of what Kamo said, all or most knowledge keepers, whether that's like indigenous or like more like a colonial European based wisdom, shows that foraging is good for the environment, that being outside and working with plants is beneficial to the world. So don't be scared to interact with your environment, you know? I know it can be really intimidating, and
Unless if it's at the air base.
true, yes. But even that interacting with, you know, like learning about what, like, so we're talking about the air base because that area is really poison, right? We're all going to get like snipered out for talking about it.
Oh my god, they're gonna find us on the res? No.
That picture, that camera. No, but I think even like walking around, you're not foraging, you're looking at the environment and you're seeing how it looks different than maybe an area that looks better, right? But airbase aside, like in Brooklyn, there have been studies on foraging showing that things that are just washed well are fine, you know? But like the airbase is kind of different ball game. But and also just that like just ask questions, learn about your environment, learn about plants, don't over harvest, and just take care and be intentional about what you do and whose land you're on also, you know, especially for other Europeans, other settlers, you know, acknowledge native wisdom on the topic.
I think I read somewhere too that even if you're not, like some plants need to be picked, like Kamo said, but also there's some that need to get stepped on. Like the foot traffic is important.
Oh, okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
because it builds up their tolerance and endurance and resilience.
Oh, I believe that. Like,
Versus,
I've been
like-
stepped on. No.
I know, I'm like that.
No, but like, it makes sense though. It's like the wind. The wind moving plants making
Oh
them
yeah,
stronger.
yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, like when you're hardening off your garden plants.
You gotta tough them up a little bit, yell at them every once in a while. No,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Doesn't
No, I'm just playing.
A little tough love.
Tough love, yeah, that's where I was headed
Them
to.
around a little bit. Torn cheeks.
And there's more medicines than you might think. Like, go out, learn just because you don't maybe see the one medicine you went out for. There's plenty of other things to look at and learn about. And,
Yeah.
you know, if you are in a situation where you really need medicine, it might be right there in front of you, you know. Like, something that I learned at Standing Rock actually was if the medicine smells like you need it, then you might need it,
Wow.
you know?
That's cool to think about.
Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what elderberry, like, doesn't smell good to me anymore. I'm serious!
Elderberry's like, you got enough.
I'm like,
It just smells like throw up.
Dang. Mixed with the stomach acid.
Ew.
because I got a
That's-
great immunity, that's why.
Dang.
I don't need elderberry.
That reminds me, remember class? And then we gave Teddy some hops tea, or was it? Yeah, something.
We drank a lot of teas.
We did. One of them.
It was hops, Lakota, Chayaka, and another one?
Vervain.
Vervain, yeah.
Yeah. So then, it's good for digestive system.
Love hops.
And so, the student of mine. We did a tea tasting demo and just experimenting with the senses, like Carm said. What do you smell? What do you feel? What do you see? What do you taste? Things like that. And so class gets over with. You know, we do the activity, and I get this text message from one of the students, and they say, "Gee, I really had to rush home because whatever we drank cleaned me out."
Oh my god.
It's like, that's good. That means you're detox now. Like, you're good to go. I guess, but gee, I live all the way in SF.
Oh, just holding it in.
Yeah. Too funny.
Hey, disclaimer. No.
Yeah. Lots to talk about poo this episode.
Yeah.
Shoot.
But I mean, like, if you really think about it, some people do detox. They do detox. So there are plants that can help with detox.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That you don't need to buy at the store or slam that glass of milk or ice cream. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
That feels really targeted, what you
Yeah.
just said.
Sorry.
Yeah, no kind of medicine is really that new, you know? There's plants that help us with birth and the opposite
Yeah.
of birth, and there's plants that help with
Everything in between.
Yeah, for real though. That's so true. Is there, I'm kind of skipping around, is there a plant that reminds you of strength or healing?
Ooh.
And I guess in a sense of like it is like healing, or maybe just that, I think that conversation we just had about how the resilience of things, or that they can sustain being just washed and they're fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like in any way that it makes sense to you.
The one that's coming up for me right now is nettles. Because, you know, like, first of all, once you recognize what nettles look like, you see that they're everywhere. And even listening to people talk that maybe don't know that nettles is a medicine, they're like, oh, it's just a weed and it takes over everything. And it's like, you're so lucky to have that kind of access to that many nettles. And so I've noticed just in my few years of going out and gathering plants and teaching other people how to identify and gather, the stinging from the leaves doesn't bother me as much anymore. Like before I was like, ew, this is gross. I don't like this. I have to wear gloves. But now I'll just go out there bare hands and be picking that stuff. And like, I still have a little bit of a reaction, but it doesn't last long. It's maybe just a few minutes and it goes away. So I don't know if it's just kind of building up a tolerance to that, or realizing that those nettles may be helping something in my body that I don't know is going on. So yeah, that's the first plant that comes to mind for me anyway.
Wow, like so many. I think it's easy to think about the kind of touchstone sacred herbs, sacred plants around here. And it's also coming to mind about invasive plants that are maybe too strong for their own good around here, take up too much space, and have an unfair advantage around here, like mullein, you know, or like kudzu in the south is a really sacred Chinese herb used for alcohol cravings and alcohol detox. But when it was introduced here, it just took over. Like it's some people call it the plant that is taking over the South. It'll like swallow up a whole forest. It's one of the most invasive plants in the world.
Damn.
And I also think about like traditional medicine. So there's this plant, Euphorbia resnifera, that I was thinking about recently when we were talking about honey at the that elder meal that you did with Marla. So Euphorbia resnifera looks like a cactus, but it's not a cactus. It grows in Amazigh territory, so in northern Africa. And the milky sap inside of it is so hot that on the Scoville index it's like 15 billion on the Scoville index. Carolina Reaper is like 2 million. So it's
Whoa.
like way hotter. So it'll give you chemical burns. So if you like pour it out and, you know, touch it to your skin, kind of like poison ivy, it would burn a hole in your skin. But
And that's the plant that's taking over?
no, this
Oh,
is
okay.
a separate plant.
Oh shit, okay, sorry.
No. But sorry, I should have clarified that. In Amazigh territory,
Oh yeah.
in North Africa, the traditional medicine keepers of that area will, you know how you can keep bees and just have the bees use like one kind of plant? Like we have clover honey, stuff like that. So those bees can just pollinate the euphorbia. And so then it's euphorbia honey.
Whoa.
I forgot, there's a traditional name for the plant, but I don't know it. And then that honey will make your mouth go numb. So people will hold it in their mouth. It's like really expensive, fancy honey. And then you can like hold it in the back of your throat, let it run down, and it'll completely numb your whole throat. You know, so that's like,
Then you can take your tonsils out.
yeah.
Kidding.
So that's an example of like a poisonous plant, like a dangerous or strong plant that can also be used for medicine, you know, and our most poisonous plants can be used now to kill cancer, you know.
Oh my gosh.
'Cause so like
that makes a lot of
that's
sense.
kind of what I was saying earlier about medicine and poison being so closely linked.
Because it's basically kind of like how they're using chemo.
Yeah, exactly.
Dang.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Makes sense.
And chemo is plant derived, I think,
Oh,
at some point,
really?
you know, or like
Just like opiates.
yeah, and like you know, white willow bark is the original aspirin.
Mm-hmm. Dang.
So
Wow. That's cool.
I could keep talking about how like to me, using the actual plant instead of using like an essential compound, like what those things do, aspirin.
Oh yeah.
Like as an herbalist, I call it, or we call it, whole plant herbalism. Don't mind us. There's just gunshots in the background. And like essential oils is not a whole plant herbalism. That's using like modern colonized science to extract and break down a plant and use it for just like a scientific compound.
Wow.
But that's not
I
something I try
never
to stay away from
realized
essential
that.
oils because they're actually pretty detrimental to the environment. Like to make rose essential oil takes like pounds and pounds and pounds of rose.
Ooh.
So
That makes so much freaking sense. And then they're like, you know, popularized in society.
Yeah.
And on TikTok and
and like
stuff.
pyramid schemes like doTERRA
Oh
and
yeah.
that's kind of an interesting cult, like doTERRA and what's the other one? Young Living or something like that.
What's doTERRA and stuff?
It's an essential oil company, but it's an MLM,
MLM,
Yeah.
what's that?
multi-level marketing. It's like
Like they highly profit?
no, it's like they
Like I sign up and then I convince you and Hollis to sign up
yeah.
to start selling.
Oh, so it
oils.
makes it more worse.
It's like pyramid scheme. So like
Yeah.
the company
Like Bitcoin stuff?
No.
kind
No.
It would be like the company, we could get all into it. There's podcasts about this too, but so the company convinces me to become a seller. And in order to do that, I have to buy like thousands of dollars of their products. And then I have to try and sell it to y'all. And
Holy.
then I could say, hey, Foster,
Oh, that's
actually,
like the
if you
makeup
wanted to
stuff,
become
right?
a seller,
Yeah.
yeah, like Mary Kay,
Yeah.
Avon.
Avon.
Exactly.
Or maybe that, I don't know. Yeah, Avon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense. I'm like, holy shit. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I try and stay away from essential oils. There's some plants that, you know, like there's small essential oil companies. I kind of have an idea of, I think it would be cool to use like the Black Hill spruce or some of these spruces to make essential oils because that would be way less detrimental. Like that big tree could make a bunch of essential oil and not hurt the tree at all. So like there's some things like that, you know. But as far as, you know, like lavender essential oil, things like that.
Takes lavender a long time to grow, huh?
Yeah. And it's like very sensitive. Yeah, tender.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, like, for those of us that have pets, essential oil is very toxic to them. Like diffusing it, because my family, we used to diffuse a lot of oil for like fragrance in our home, and then to, you know, diffuse lavender in the evening to help us calm down and go to bed. It's actually very toxic to like pets' kidneys because it breaks it down in a different way in their bodies, and it's harmful to them.
Wow.
And like you don't even actually know if it's lavender or whatever in there unless you tested it and know where you got it from.
Exactly.
Same way you're supposed to like pick the sage that you burn yourself. You know, it's like you don't know where that lavender is, where it came from. Even the factory, the farm could be horribly traumatic, like our cows. You know.
Yeah.
Like
And
we
some
treat
of it
plants
can
the
be
same way.
artificial.
Yeah, exactly. And fragrances are really bad, right? Those artificial fragrances.
Dang.
So it's best to just live within our own arm's reach, you know? The plants that are growing right here, the animals that are right here. That's why I should move back to Italy.
Hashtag shop local.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hashtag food sovereignty.
We're trying out the big herb garden this year,
Oh, cool.
just to have our own for incense burning or making our own soaps and things like that. Just so, like you said, we know where it's from.
Yeah.
It's as organic as can be.
Organic.
Really excited y'all are growing lemon balm. That's a newer herb for me. And just honestly, just a cup of lemon balm tea with a little bit of lavender. Oh, it's so comforting.
It's pretty, like, it'll grow pretty well, you know?
Yeah, this one's taken off compared to some of the other plants, and we got some new ones I've never even heard of before. Motherwort, that's one of them.
Ooh,
Let's see what
that
else.
grows really well. It's like really invasive around here too. Like,
Oh, really?
You can find it too. But like you could even get like those online. It'll be sold as corn mint, but you could get chiaka seeds and then you could just have a bunch of chiaka.
Wow.
You know.
Horehound
Mm.
and Cherville. Cherville?
Cherville. I don't know how to say that.
Those are the only ones that came up that I don't really know too much about, but excited for it. We're here for it.
Yeah.
Experimenting.
Cool.
But yeah, is there anything else that you would like to say as we close out our session here? Coloring's intense. I'm on my second page.
Same.
I'm on my third. So crazy.
Words of wisdom. Questions for the audience to ponder.
Advice, or some of you gave advice already, but advice too, or even
A good scolding. No,
how
just
do you
kidding.
how do you yeah, how do you hope to pass on things that you've learned, or
I don't know. Maybe for advice, like, definitely take pictures of stuff that you find that's new to you. If you're not 100% sure what it is, don't pick it. But then also just get used to carrying around like clippers or a knife or whatever. And maybe a little bit of tobacco if you want to give that as an offering. And hopefully you're okay with having a bunch of glass jars just sitting around your house with dried herbs in them. It's an aesthetic, but it takes up a lot of space.
I think we should all listen to our elders more, listen to our children more, take care of each other, take care of the earth more, you know, pick up trash. For every, you know, like I said, for every 4 plants I find, I take one, you know, and that applies to basically everything. Just, we can all take a little less and learn a little more, listen more, and be kind to each other.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
In yourselves.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, Pilami Ayapi, thank you both for joining us and sharing your knowledge and experiences. Gets me all excited. I learned a lot of stuff in our conversation, and I feel like we could definitely talk about this for days.
Yeah, easily.
And it's exciting stuff too. I really like it.
We've said this before, but we need to actually plan our witching hour.
Yeah.
Where we just make salves, tinctures, all kinds of stuff. Tea blends.
Sounds fun.
And that also makes me think, like, along those lines is, like, I've been wanting to do this, but picking up trash together in some of those special locations that we do go to harvest, like the other day when we went around, because I think, Hollis, what you were saying is really important, and it's been on my mind lately, especially now that I have a lot more free time. And one time, Foster and I did, like, where the community garden was here in White River, we picked up the trash on that whole, like, block section. It was so much trash, and a lot of it was, like, alcohol bottles. And then, like, a few weeks later, it was back to the same amount of trash. And it was, like, really hard for me to, like, see that in my own hometown. But I feel like, okay, if we did this frequently and it would just become a lifestyle as much as we do harvesting, since harvesting is a lifestyle, then maybe it would rub off onto other people, because plants rub off onto other people, you know, your plant knowledge and stuff. So maybe, like, that picking up trash will be a natural thing that everyone in the whole tribe does, even just when they're out and about. Because it's easier to do that than harvesting, maybe, because with harvesting you have to have knowledge. With trash, it's just like you're just picking up trash.
Yeah.
But we should do that. And I like that witching hour thing that you're talking about. Yeah.
That was fun.
All the above.
I'll say 2 things. Yeah, if you're gonna have some scissors in your car to harvest, then you should also have a bunch of trash bags. You know, just keep contractor bags in your car. And then that's, like, the easiest way to have an offering. You know, you go out, and what I like to do, say I'm looking for something like this week, we're looking for chayaka, then I pick up trash and I just like to say, we're looking for chayaka. You know, I talk to the plants. And then I'm like, look at what I'm doing. you know, like, but really, it's important to do that. But I also think, you know, that I try to think about, okay, why is all this trash here? You know, in the Black Hills, they have a lot of money to have trash cans and have people pick up the trash, like, from the government. And so, and then white people will come here and maybe say, oh, there's all this trash here. But there's no trash cans, and there's no infrastructure that's picking up the trash.
That's so true.
And so I'd love to do something like have a trash can that I take care of at Ghost Talk or something like that, you know? And then I also think,
kind of like adopt a highway.
yeah, adopt a trash can. Could be a
fun
park. Little thing. And also, like, you know, I think it's easier for a white person to come and say, oh, look at all this trash. But really, when I go to Rapid and I see all those fucking parking lots, that's trash. A mall is trash. A gas station's trash. And there's way less trash here. 100%.
Wow, holy shit. I never put it into perspective like that.
And it's less harmful. Like, a beer bottle on the ground is less harmful than, like, a jail.
Wow.
You know?
At South Dakota.
Yeah.
For real, right?
Christy.
At
Crusty.
Alligator Alcatraz.
Yeah.
Crusty gnome.
Yeah, leave the alligators alone.
Someone get your auntie.
Not much.
Okay.
Well, this was fun, y'all. We
It
appreciate
was.
you both and the knowledge bombs and advice and just lived experiences. That's how we learn best.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And just disclaimer, we're all still learning.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Not claiming to be an expert on anything. So,
Just an expert in experiences.
yeah.
And mistakes.
Exactly. Plenty of mistakes.
I like that. Cool. Well, we will get this posted and shared out. So
Cue the exit song.
Hey. Yeah. Okay. We all colored so much. It was fun.
Why is that done?
That's okay. Alright, well, Doksha Ake, Watҷo Kapikte.
Bye.
Peace.
We out.
Peace.